Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland. And this is our third episode on this show, and we're going to be focusing on yet another film from the Coen Brothers. It's actually Miller's Crossing, which honestly is one of their more straightforward kind of dramatic films where it's definitely their most serious film. There's not as much humor. It's focusing on this Prohibition era gangster film, which is interesting because if you have seen the show Fargo, which gets a lot of inspiration, obviously, from the original film from the Coen brothers, but you could definitely feel, especially in this fourth season, which was the most recent one, that kind of feel of like a gangster story feels right out of Miller's Crossing, and we're going to be talking about that. But the format of the show, we're going to start off with coming attractions, and there's some big, interesting films coming out this weekend, and one of which I am super excited for. And then we're going to be talking about Miller's Crossing, and then I have some questions to talk about, and that's the show and that's the wrap. So let's get started by focusing on coming attractions. So what's coming the weekend of February 26th? So what we have coming out this weekend, we have the Tom and Jerry film. It's a live action with Tom and Jerry animated in this real world. This is another one of the Warner HBO Max releases, so a lot of people get to see it. You have the United States versus Billie Holiday. There's a really strong documentary that came out about Billie Holiday in 2020. So now we have this film, which Andra Day, I believe, who's playing Billie Holiday, is getting a lot of awards consideration for her performance for this film, and this is coming out on Hulu. And then you have Cherry coming out in theaters, which is the Apple TV Plus film from the Russo brothers with Tom Holland in it. I've gotten a chance to screen it. Review will be coming right around when this episode drops, so go check it out. We also have The Vigil, which is a IFC midnight film focusing, it's a horror film with very deep Jewish roots in terms of religion. I got a chance to screen that as well. My review will be coming also out around this time when this episode drops. And boy, is that a creepy one. But what's catching my attention the most is definitely The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins. And he is playing a man who's dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's, and he's slowly losing his grip on reality, his connection with his family members. You have Olivia Colman in it, which both of them are getting some strong considerations for awards. Olivia Williams is also in the film, Imogen Poots, Rufus Sewell. So there's a strong cast here. And you also have Florian Zeller, who's the director. And I love Anthony Hopkins. He is such a fantastic actor. So that enough is making me the most excited about this film. And also knowing some of the people who got to see it, I know Chris Stuckman saw and absolutely loved it, really hit close to home. I could also relate, especially because my grandmother dealing with dementia for the greater part of the last 8 years of her life. And I live with my grandparents. So I think the stellar cast, the really relatable source material and what the film is focusing on, and this kind of reality breaking down kind of story, I think is very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to checking this film out. It is releasing in theaters on the 26th. Not positive when it's going to be available outside of theaters, so hopefully doesn't take too much longer afterwards, because I definitely want to see this film. Now, those are our coming attractions for the week. So let's talk about our film of the week as we continue our walk through the career of the Coen brothers. We have Miller's Crossing. And this film is, like I mentioned before, much more of a crime drama, as it focuses on this one gangster, Tom Regan, who's an advisor to Leo, who is a gangster. We have Gabriel Byrne playing Tom, who's supporting Albert Finney's Leo. But he's also having an affair with Marcia Gay Harden's character, who's supposed to be with Leo. So we got ourselves a little bit of a love triangle here. And her brother, played by John Turturro, is causing some issues in this whole gangster world. And just to make things even more complicated, you have John Polito's Johnny Casper, who is another gangster that is really trying to shake things up in this Prohibition era gangster movie. And you have a lot of great other character actors who pop up through the film, like J.E. Freeman as the Dane, who's the big heavy for Casper's gang. You have Mike Starr playing Frankie, plays just a great Italian mobster. And you have Steve Buscemi in a small role in this film. Michael Jeter pops up a little bit. Sam Raimi, of all people, has a little tiny cameo appearance in this film as he's friends with the Coen brothers. And this film, in the whole series of Coen brothers films, I feel like it's one of their more underappreciated films. Obviously, it's early on, and this is such a big shift, which you see a lot in with the Coen brothers films. You have Blood Simple, which is very much a crime thriller. Then you shift gears to Raising Arizona, which is an over-the-top, crazy, silly kind of comedy. And then you shift gears again back into this pretty serious crime drama you have in the form of Miller's Crossing, which is also a name of a place where you take some people out and they don't come back. So it's a place in the film that has a very big significance and has some mysteries to it. It has some very intense scenes set around it. And to set the stage of this film, you have the Coen brothers doing their thing, writing, directing, producing this film. And you still have Carter Burwell, who's been doing these scores for the Coen brothers for forever, who comes up with a very fitting kind of score that matches that tension, suspense of the crime thrills throughout this film. And this is actually the last film that we have Barry Sonnenfeld doing the cinematography for the Coen brothers before Roger Deakins takes over with Barton Fink, which I am so excited to talk about next week. But with Miller's Crossing, you still see a lot of those Coen brothers kinds of shots, these big, exaggerated shots, which you do get when Deakins takes over, except not quite like how Sonnenfeld is able to create them. There's one particular shot in this film that's one of the probably most famous of this really intense confrontation towards the end of the film that winds up having this one guy just screaming at the top of his lungs, and how the camera just shoots towards him. These exaggerated angles and exaggerating movements really captures the energy and the chaos in that scene. But we have the film starting off. There's a lot of moving pieces in this film and a lot of people to keep track of. There's, we have Tom, who's playing both sides, and us as the audience who's going on in this film with him being our lead, we wonder, whose side is he on anyway? And trying to figure that out through most of the film. And that's where a lot of the mystery and intrigue that comes in, because who's he playing? And you have Leo and Casper on each side. And I'll talk about both of those performances separately, but you have Gabriel Byrne, who's very intense, quiet intensity. Tom's not the most likable guy. He's not somebody that we automatically we like this guy. He's a bit problematic. He has a strange relationship with Marcia Gay Harden's character, Verna, who's really strong. She's a fantastic actress. And I think probably the most memorable role for me for her is The Mist, which, my God, she plays one of those characters that you just want to jump through the screen and just grab, because you're just like, I hate you so much. And she's in an interesting place in this film because she shows some power. She shows some aggression. She shows that she has some sway in this love triangle going on between Tom and Leo and her. She's getting in the way of that friendship. But the thing is, Tom's the one making his own decisions. and covering things up and trying to have this affair that ruins his relationship with Leo, which causes the back and forth. Who's he really siding with? Do we know who he's really siding with? And you get this, like, the fistful of dollars kind of thing where, and the Yojimbo, it's like, who's playing each other off of each other? And there's always Tom either screwing somebody over, Tom getting the crap beaten out of him by the heavies, or getting caught up with the cops and sicking them on people, or trying to get under the skin of different people. And, there's moments where you see Tom being very vulnerable. There's a particular scene at Miller's Crossing towards probably the end of the second act where he knows he's in some trouble. So he starts vomiting and getting physically ill because of it. And you see that vulnerability. You see him have the crap beaten out of him in this film. And you have those moments, and Byrne just really sells it, whether it's this or his really aggressive, over the top performance in Excalibur, or you have his performance in The Usual Suspects, which I think is a lot more like this, where it's like, do we really like him? Do we really trust him? But he has a great leading man persona in this film, and you get to see him play all the sides. Then you get to see the two sides that you have here. And in many ways, there's three sides, but when it really focuses on these two dueling mob bosses, you have Albert Finney, who's fantastic. He's charismatic. He's in charge. He has an amazing scene when a group of guys are in his home trying to put a hit out on him, and how he gets away and has his Tommy gun, and just like people are shooting at him and he's just standing there like intensely just shooting at him, takes out everybody. He's flipping off of his roof onto the ground and like shooting up, and this fantastic camera work by Sonnenfeld with the Coen brothers framing that upward shot of him just shooting that Tommy gun across, and just the flashes off the gun and that just upward angle, and you just see Albert Finney just taking control of that scene. It's fantastic. The framing is perfect. This film has such a tangible just look to it in how it captures the period. And Coen brothers really know how to capture a time period, a design. That production design in their films is pitch perfect. They know exactly what they want, and they're able to execute it perfectly. And this film is no different. You're in this. You see the big, it's like speakeasies and the big elaborate suits and dresses, the flapper dresses, everything just brought to life, and it works so perfectly. And so many of the actors just work so well, like, because Gabriel Byrne and Albert Finney have this classic man kind of look. Marcia Gay Harden really captures that look of a woman from that time with like the dress and the bobbed hair, and everything just works perfectly. And the perfect casting, because they look like they were in this time and they feel timeless. And this is one of the first times, like one of the first early roles for like a John Turturro, who gets some meatiness. He has a great scene at Miller's Crossing when he's supposed to be taken out, and he has this vulnerability. And then you really get to know his character more, and it's like, what's real, what's not real. And his complex relationship with him and Tom is one of the driving forces of the film. And them playing each other, who's playing who's going to get the upper hand. That cat and mouse game in this film from all sides is intriguing and keeps you invested in the story. And Turturro is great. And he's surprisingly smart about everything in this film, and he's able to really capture that and do something with it. And then you have John Polito, who is Casper. He is fantastic. He is a wonderful performer. And the Coen brothers, like, we're going to talk about him in Barton Fink in such a different performance, and you have him in The Big Lebowski, which I cannot wait to have that show. But as like, I'm your brother Seamus. We're PIs together. And just like these small roles. But in this one, he gets a meaty supporting role, and he owns it. He is the wild card, big personality character. John Turturro's character, Bernie, Bernie Birnbaum, he is the wild card in his actions, and can we trust him? He's even he's even harder to read than Tom is. But we know what to expect from Casper. He is big personality, and he just sells it because John Polito is fantastic as this character. It is his best performance in his career, and there is just an unleashed kind of energy about him. And that's what makes him so different than from Leo, because Albert Finney's character Leo is so calm, cool, and collected, and he just holds it together, and he just looks commanding in every moment. Casper looks like this is a guy you don't want to mess with, because is he going to go off? Are you going to be able to work with him and control him? And then you have all the fun heavies, like J.E. Freeman is the Dane. He is a fantastic character in this film. Him and Tom have a horrible tension between each other. Just the interactions with Tom and all the different characters is worth watching this film. And the chemistry that Byrne has with all the rest of the cast. J.E. Freeman really sells things. And one of the most memorable scenes in the whole entire film is this sequence where things are coming to a head, and Casper has to decide, who's he going to trust? The Dane, who's been supporting him for years, or is it Tom, who is like the go-to guy you want to trust? And that blows up into such a satisfying, aggressive scene. And then there's so many great scenes between Turturro and Byrne, because you can't read Turturro's character, Bernie, and he tries to always have the upper hand. And then there's a great climax of this film where things come to a head. Leo kind of gets sidelined, honestly. He's kind of out of the picture for most of the rest of the film, until where after a big blow up between Leo and Tom earlier in the film that goes to blows, they come together at the very end and have a moment. And how's it going to turn out? And that's a great character moment, an emotional moment between best friends. But before we get there, the climax of the film, of the action, you have where Bernie and Casper and Tom, things have to come to an end in some way. And it's so intriguing how it plays out, and it's so unexpected. The Coen brothers keep you on your toes in Miller's Crossing. And throughout the whole entire time, Carter Burwell's score is just laying it down. Has this classic kind of feel to it, really captures the atmosphere and brings the tension. And it's so great in every single scene, whether we're at the big speakeasies, whether we're at a big raid, whether we're at Miller's Crossing, an extremely tense, beautifully shot, just picturesque look out into the woods, or it's dark in an apartment building, and what is going to happen between these three characters and how this all plays out is so satisfying and intriguing all the way up until the very end. And this film is really an unsung classic of the Coen brothers. Wish that it got more attention, because it's very serious. It's up there with No Country, and probably trying to, like, Inside Llewyn Davis, like some of those films, A Serious Man, are very serious films. This is probably their most serious film. Yeah, there's some fun because some of the characters are larger than life, but this is a very serious and intense crime thriller. And it has great production design, great music, wonderful cinematography, great direction. This never lags. It never drags. It never feels like we're losing out on something. There's just an energy between the cast and the crew bringing this film together, and leaves you on the edge of your seat and questioning throughout the whole entire film. And it's such a satisfying experience. So if you haven't seen Miller's Crossing, do yourself a favor and take advantage of this. I've had this one on DVD ever since I got like a Coen Brothers pack early in college, over 10 years ago, probably at this point. But I love Miller's Crossing. If you haven't seen it, Go check this film out. Now, that is the film of our week. And next week, we're going to be talking about Barton Fink, which is one of my favorite Coen Brothers films, and really don't think it gets enough attention that it deserves because it is a fantastic film. So if you want to talk about Barton Fink on the show, let me know. And whether it's in the comments here, message me on Instagram, and then we'll make sure to get things filmed next weekend and hopefully have some other people to chat about that great film. Now, the last piece of the show this week is our Q&A section, which I had a special question from a special person in my life, what I think the impact of COVID is going to be on the theater experience. And I think it's interesting because we're getting to the point where people are getting vaccinated. It probably won't be until the summer until everybody that really, really wants it does get vaccinated. And hopefully we're getting back closer to things, which as of now, I still haven't gone back to the theater. I have been to the drive-in, which I think that's a big thing to talk about. I really hope that the drive-in keeps thriving. It's another fun way to go to the movies. And it's an experience, and I really enjoyed it. And it was one of the ways that I felt comfortable being able to go back to the movies. Now, the actual theatrical experience, there's still going to be the big movies, those big tentpole films that are going to be showing up in theaters, your Marvel films, your DC films, your Fast and Furious, Transformers movies, and all of those big time films like a Dune and those big prestige pictures like Dune, stuff like that will always have a place in the theaters. Will there be less theaters? Probably. Obviously, a lot have already closed down. My AMC in Hamilton, New Jersey, that I've gone to the most out of any theater ever is AMC Hamilton, and have so many memories. And it's gone now. And it's really sad, and I'm going to miss it. That 24 screens, they always had everything. And I could check out so many different films. But I think a lot of the theaters will be smaller. Like the smaller ones will stay intact, like the AMC 8s and 10s and 12s maybe. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of 24s sticking around. It's too much. But I do think that those big movies are going to be there, keeping those theaters alive. And there's always room for the indie theaters, for those little films. And as long as they could get support, whether it's like the Princeton Garden Theater has membership, and once I have things in a better place, I'm definitely going to be a member again and supporting it. I want to support Philly Film Society. They've been great through all of this COVID situation. The smaller films, I think more and more are going to get picked up by the streaming services. And I think that's a great place for them to make an impact because honestly, a lot of those films don't really make a profit in theaters. And I think like a Nomadland getting picked up by Hulu, or these films getting picked up by Apple TV Plus or Netflix, by Amazon, I think that's going to happen more. And there might be some more like prestige directors who find their place at these streaming services, like a Soderbergh, who is doing the Netflix thing, doing the HBO Max thing. You might have a Fincher who might keep working with Netflix. You never know. And I think more directors will find that. Scorsese, I don't think is ever going to make a film that's going to be bankrolled again by just the studios. I think he needs the streaming services. And whether he likes that or not, or if that's a good thing or not, I think it's what's going to happen. And I think a lot more like a Palm Springs getting bought up, Coda getting bought up by the streaming services. I think that's going to happen a lot. I hope Leica does, honestly. Look what happened with Cartoon Saloon and Wolfwalkers. That was great. That was a great pickup for Apple TV Plus, and it works so well on there. I really look forward to seeing more Cartoon Saloon and more Leica, because I think Leica would thrive better on streaming, because obviously like Missing Link didn't make money. It did not at all. And I don't think there's going to be more. I think once things get closer to normal, like the whole hybrid premiere access thing on Disney Plus, I think that's going to go away. But I do think that some more and more of their like middle of the road kind of live action films might wind up just going on to Disney Plus, because why not? Cruella, Lady and the Tramp, Artemis Fowl, those kinds of things I think might wind up working out better on Disney Plus, where they could get that streaming audience. Look at Flora and Ulysses just came out. Little things like that, I think they work on Disney Plus. But, and like obviously the Marvel shows are going to be on there, but those big films, Thor Love and Thunder is going to be in a theater. I really hope at that point it's going to be in a theater. I hope to see Black Widow in a theater, but we're going to find out and see what happens. But I don't think the movie theater industry is going to die. I think it's going to narrow its focus, and I think that might be a good thing because I have a master's in accounting, so thinking just from a business standpoint, I think they might need to do that to survive, even if it weren't for the pandemic. But I'm going to be going back to the theaters, and I miss that experience so much. Now, I'm only including this question because I want to have a laugh. So I asked for questions on Instagram. So when you see that, throw some questions, or when I post about the new shows, throw some questions in the comments so your question can pop up on here. That was my girlfriend's question about the impact of COVID. She disguised it as my cat wanted to ask this question. But this next question is from my friend Paige, who is on Lost in the Wasteland. And if you haven't seen Paige's episode where we talk a lot about the witch and we talk a lot about the lighthouse, we see very differently on the lighthouse. But she said, how dare you, Paige, ask such a question that I don't even get a chance to talk about on the show? So right back at you. And I threw my own in just to have a little bit more to talk about. And I asked this question this week: what is your favorite trailer? Because I haven't watched movie trailers in a while. I did wind up watching the Cruella trailer that dropped and like the Mortal Kombat one. Yes, so excited for that movie. But thinking about some of my favorite trailers, the one that grabbed me was that Mad Max Fury Road trailer. When that first trailer dropped and it had that bombastic, just orchestral, like opera-esque kind of music, and it just like, it didn't kick into like the score from the film, which is absolutely amazing anyway, but that orchestral song just kicking into gear and this colorful just chaos everywhere, these big action set pieces, the what a day, what a lovely day, and then the kicking in the gear, and it's like it's like do 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 do, and you just have all of these explosions and cars and just everything going. You got the feel of the film, and it blew me away. I was so excited for that film, and it paid off. It delivered so well because Fury Road is amazing. But that trailer was the perfect thing to get me excited for that film. Another quick honorable mention is the Johnny Cash Hurt trailer for Logan. And it's like, I hurt myself today. And you could see like Logan like cutting his own hand in like the bathroom, just looking so just in pain and drained. And you're just like, oh my God, this is old man Logan. And just sitting there watching that trailer just blew me away. And so the film, one of the few films to make me cry. But those are some great trailers. So we're also probably going to be talking about our favorite trailers on Development Hell podcast coming up. So tune in for that as well. Look at me, just shamelessly plugging all my other things. So that is the end of Welcome to the Wasteland this week. So I appreciate you tuning in. So just think though, if you want to be on a future episode, comment, let me know, message me on Instagram. I'm going to be talking about every other Coen Brothers film. Next up, Barton Fink. If you want to join Lost in the Wasteland and get interviewed about your perspective on movies, let me know. Message me on Instagram. Basically, message me on Instagram. Or if you want some of your questions answered on the Welcome to the Wasteland, leave some questions in the comments. I'll make sure to include them next time. But the most important thing is thank you all. Thank you all, as always, for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.